in MBA 671, section 70. This is my sales presentation. I'm joined by John Mendenhall, who will role play as my customer from JM Engineering. John, glad we could finally get introduced and have this meeting. So good to finally connect. Pat with Aqueous Vets. I sent my business card over in the email, but it sounds like you wanted to go through some other vessel options prior to your meeting with the city. Well, I'm here to help.
Well, good morning, Pat. Yes, that'd be a great help to me and my team and I, and my team. And as I said before, I'm the head engineer on this project.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks again so much, John, for setting up this meeting. Glad we can make it work. I know you and your team are busy this time of year. I didn't see too much in the email, but what are you looking to discuss today?
Well, our end user is the city, and they're pretty set up on your competition, and they've been referred to them and used them in the past. However, with this funding mechanism, we feel it really isn't a good idea, to do somewhat of a sole, or at least perceived as a sole source type of arrangement. So we want to at least consider other options. So I appreciate getting the opportunity to meet with you and learn more about the Aqueous Vets team and their offering.
Yeah, Andrew, that sounds great. And I'm more than happy to help and have this presentation help clients like you and yourself with their options. AV is supporting tons of clients in the exact same situation as the landscape of drinking water continues to change. I know Vince and his team really appreciate our presentation. I'm sure that's why he referred me to you. Before we jump in, I'd like to confirm we have a half hour for this meeting and presentation. Is that correct?
Pat, unfortunately, I do have a meeting coming up, so I will need. So basically, I only have 15 minutes. Is that an issue?
Certainly. No worries at all. I totally understand. Vince stated in his referral that you were looking at similar situation to him. I'd like to go over potential solutions that AV can provide with our offering in terms of use with your engineering firm. Finally, as the city's ultimately tied in with their funding, I'd like to discuss financial benefits to AV systems. That really is important to us, considering the entire life cycle of the site versus just the sale. Anything else I need to consider?
No, that all sounds perfect. Thank you.
All right, one last thing I wanted to verify. Is it you, John, that provides the final recommendation to the city?
Yeah, that's correct. I have the final say of vendor input, but of course, the decision is ultimately the city's with their funding. However, we usually help guide the decision based on what we feel is the best offering.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. Before we look at the solutions, I have a few questions to better understand your needs as an individual and as your firm. So you mentioned the city has current treatment in place. Was that relationship established by your team or by the client?
That was actually by the state, as it was an emergency funding paid for by a lawsuit. So it was more an impulse buy. And something, up and, to get something going up and running as soon as possible. They are an approved vendor, so it made it an easy decision.
Oh, thank you for that, John. So can you clarify how that relationship has been since the sale? Have you been getting everything that you need from them?
Good question. The city would say yes, but I'm on the fence. The response times are fast, but everything is standardized. They do not seem to take unique site or client situations into consideration. For a non-emergency like this, I think we need to at least consider other options.
Yeah, I see. That makes sense. And thank you. So tell me more about the thoroughness and customized approaches. It sounds like that's something that's very important to you.
That is correct. We don't just support this client. We support dozens of municipalities currently, and everyone has unique needs and issues. I don't think a cookie cutter approach is warranted. And I also, excuse me, and also that is why we are here as engineers.
Yes, absolutely. It's very important for you to look at various options and do your homework, even if your client is not willing to. And that's how you present your value. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct.
Excellent. And now you say that you feel the current providers, selling more of that cookie cutter off the shelf solutions. With having unique site requirements, as this site does, it's important to have these conversations. Is the current vendor aware and taking those into consideration?
They're aware it's in the RFP. However, I have not had any follow up or site visits, and the bid is early next week.
Very interesting. That's surprising to me. There are a lot of things to evaluate other than just the system. Something could get missed that makes install a nightmare.
Yeah, I think there were issues at another site where the unloading and install were complicated by the site layout. The operations crew was not happy.
I bet they were not. No one wants to spend a lot of money on a new system and then have issues on the install. So I'm very glad we could get together today on site and review everything. Thanks again for that.
I agree, and you're welcome. It is good. It's good to walk through other items of concern that may arise. It really is.
Yeah, and I appreciate your want to be as thorough as possible and look at this opportunity as a whole. That's very aligned with how myself and AV operate. Tell me, beyond the sale and install, is there any other area of concern?
O&M costs are very important to me, and I don't think they're talked about enough. I really don't.
I do agree. Yeah, they're not talked about enough. Can you tell me anything more specific about your concerns?
Of course. So your system and these building modifications are covered by federal funding, so the client is not concerned. However,
Hmm.
we anticipate the system needs to run 25 years and longer. So there. There are a lot of with that long 25-year operating time, there'll be a lot of costs associated with it. The client has not really thought about that. With their as the previous sale was so focused on the present here and now, the funding only covers this install. The client will have to cover the rest. So again, that 25-year life cycle is really not being considered.
Yeah, so if you could find a provider that's taken that exact thing into consideration in their design, that would be a value to in the city, even if they are not considering it.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to be stuck holding a larger bill than they already have to. So makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. And hey, John, I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions to help me better understand how you support your client. So in conclusion, you're looking for a reliable partner who will not just help with the requested system, but will take the entire site into consideration and provide over life cycle savings to the client. Is that correct?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
All right. Anything else you'd like to discuss before we jump into following potential solutions in our presentation?
No, I think we're set to begin. Thank you.
All right. Being as we are on site today, I'm going to pull up the presentation on my screen here. Is that all right with you on my laptop?
Certainly, that's no problem.
All right. Thank you. 1 second. And it's just going to be over here to my left. So I promise I'm not trying not to make eye contact with you, John. Appreciate the conversation we're having. So as we are a little short on time, I should verify. You can see my screen, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So as we are a little short on time, I'm going to kind of go through these first few slides pretty briefly as we've discussed them. But what's important here on this page is the concept to commission. Again, being that whole systems provider to you and your team, from the design and engineering all the way to training and startup and beyond. We don't want to just have that sale. We want to build a relationship and provide a solution. Um, Additionally, you're going to hear me talk a lot about our four tenets of pressure vessel design. And, you might be asking, well, what are the four tenets of pressure vessel design? Well, great timing. So, our four tenets of pressure vessel design are corrosion management, hydraulic performance, media optimization, and long term operation and maintenance. Anything stick out to you on this page, John?
Yeah, it really looks like AV has done their homework in considering many facets of the project.
Absolutely correct. AV came to be because of inefficiencies we saw in the market. As discussed before, we wanted to make sure to consider the long term of the customer and their expenditures.
That's great to hear, and I'm excited to learn more about how AV achieves this.
Well, great timing, John. These next few slides will really dive into that a bit deeper. So over here on the left hand, you can see the standard internals of our competitors' designs. We have the header lateral and the internal cone. And what's important to know when it comes to corrosion management is really the two biggest factors we see is introduction of dissimilar metals and an inability to properly coat the vessel. Well, if you look at our design on the top right here, you see that a lot simpler, lot less moving parts. So we reduce that introduction to dissimilar metal. And also, because there's less moving parts, we can ensure one homogeneous lining throughout the tank to keep it coated. Anything else that sticks out to you in these photos?
Yeah, from looking at this, I would imagine the O&M costs um, are much simpler, or at least the O&M or the operation maintenance is much simpler on your design as well. Is that right?
Yeah, very good, John. Again, to hammer the point home, everything AV has done is to provide lower costs of ownership and just a simpler design. Is that something you would want in your client system?
Yes, I really think that would be ideal for them.
Awesome. And now we'll move on. And these next two slides I'm going to condense for time, and they kind of play off of each other already. So we have hydraulic performance and media optimization. So every vessel on the market is going to create plug flow and a mass transfer zone. That's how they're designed. I'm not going to ever tell you a competitor doesn't do that. But what's important is while we create our plug flow and our mass transfer design, we do so with the lowest pressure drop on the market. So as you can see here, we're less than half of our competitors, which saves you pumping costs or saves the city pumping costs. Additionally, when it comes to, um, I apologize, anything that questions or anything that sticks out to you there, John,
Well, I
initially?
tell you, Pat, listening to you, it really looks like AV is, really evaluated the best option, and each feature, here provides savings in the long run. So again, looking at the other systems in the, out there in the market and the way you guys do things, really, again, that looks like, again, lowest cost of ownership, or or the highest savings over the long run.
Yeah, again, absolutely correct. And great segue to our next point. So just looking at the media delta alone here, we have a delta of 46 cubic feet of less media wasted, excuse me. And you can see that by the media under those red lines here. Your last bid had a cost of $4,000 per cubic foot. So every media cycle, we save $8,000 on just one system. Your other site that we looked at has six systems. That's $48,000 saved in one media cycle. And based on your exchange rate, we assume about 10 media cycles over 25 years. That's $480,000 saved for the city. Do you think that's something that could be of value to the city, John?
Wow, that's pretty incredible to think about. And yes, I do think that would be of tremendous value for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty huge. So coming into our last tenant, long-term operation and maintenance. And as you kind of seen, this tenant really does live within our other three tenants and, is kind of the end goal of everything we do at AV. So hopefully this photo on the top left looks familiar, John. This is our SEPTA design, our under drain. But what's important too is this external ring header here in the top right. So as we saw with the other designs, if anything were to break in that header lateral or that internal cone, you got a confined space, you got to remove all the media to get inside and fix it. Well, guess what? If one of these SEPTA nozzles breaks, we can remove this entire external cone, take it out, replace the broken SEPTA nozzle without ever having to go into the vessel, have confined space, and the media stays intact and you're not wasting anything. This is, I will say the only vessel on the market that can do that. None of our competitors can do that. Is that something that's of value to you as well?
Yeah, that really is. And plus, it's something that your competition has never mentioned. And I'd never even considered that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm very glad we're having this meeting, John. It's very important, again, to consider every little thing within the system and beyond the system itself. Uh, great minds think alike. And I want to take you to this next graphic, and I think this is really important because, you and I really live in the red and the gray here, the design and construction, about 2 to 4 years. And there's money there, the upfront cost of these systems. but your end user is going to live in the blue here, 25 to 50 years of operation. So really, it's not important to save as much money here in the red and the blue. Sorry, the red and the gray as it is for the blue to your customer. That's where the true difference is made. Is that something you'd look at when choosing a partner?
Yes, I'd say so.
Excellent. Now, one last graphic, and this is a really powerful one. It's a testimonial from one of our customers in the city of Tulare. But as you can see down here, we had a cost delta of just over $4,000 a year saved to them just from our lower pressure drop and pumping costs. Well, that city had 15 systems. So $4,000 a year per system over 25 years, $1.5 million of savings to them. I mean, I think that's a pretty big advantage. For the previously installed site that we spoke about with the six systems that your client previously has, if we had our systems in there, that'd be a savings of over $600,000 to them. Now pair that with the carbon savings of $480,000 we talked about. That's some savings of over $1 million in 25 years. Again, I just have to ask, is that something that'd be a benefit to your customer, John?
Yes, it is, of course.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. And that's all I have for the presentation. So thank you again. And, you know, again, really appreciate these conversations. Looks like we're getting close to the cutoff. Are you still good for about 2 more minutes?
Yes, all good here.
All right. Well, as we've discussed, our offering takes a whole system approach, and we have the end user, your client, at mind at every step. Our four tenants all work in tandem to be as efficient and easy to use for your operations, and we have just seen how I could save your client over $1 million. What are your thoughts, Andrew? Would you recommend our bid to the city?
Well, your solution meets, everything I find important, but it would still be a sell to the city as your bids typically come in higher for systems.
Yeah, and certainly, and I can understand that. Everyone's driven by costs. On our last bid with our competitor, I believe we were about $300,000 over. And I understand it's really hard for the city to look at that and justify and have to trust that those savings will come back to them from choosing our system. But if I could ask you a question, John, and hope that you would ask the city, is when we look at these upfront capital costs, the city has funding in place. That's guaranteed, from the federal government. However, they don't have funding in place for the operation of these for 25 plus years. So does it really make sense to shortchange 300,000 in guaranteed funds and have to pay $1 million out of your own pocket?
Yeah, Pat, that's a great point. These system requirements only being relative for a couple of years, it's really hard to think that far down the line, but that is hard to refute.
Yeah, and I agree. And we want to be aligned for you and your client, just like you do. If I get you over this bid today in the next hour, could I have a signed LOI by the end of the day saying that you'll solely recommend our bid to the city?
Yes, let's do that. Please submit it so I can get my get the conversation started.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, John, and I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and go through this. I'll have that over to
Likewise.
you. All
Thank you,
right.
Pat.
Thank you.